Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another vlog. Before I continue with the vlog, I would like to welcome probably about 3 or 4 new subscribers. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, much appreciated, and I hope you enjoy the. I hope you've enjoyed the ones I've done so far, and I hope that you might find this one of interest. So welcome new subscribers. Apologies for the fact that I haven't done a vlog for a little while. It's not as if I haven't had the time. I've had plenty of time, but sometimes it's just a case of doing the necessary research and so on, and preparation. There's a lot of preparation that goes into these because I've said before, these are straight off the hip. There's no editing, anything like that. And there is one thing I need to do though. I've got a list of things to my left which I need to say. I've done 2 of them. And the other one is that the last vlog I did, which featured vintage lenses, what I should have done when I was talking about mounting old Leica lenses onto digital cameras, which is basically what this is all about, I should have mentioned that whatever you do, don't collapse the lens while it's on the camera, because there's a possibility that in doing so you could damage the sensor on the digital camera. So in other words, if you have this, imagine this is mounted and then you collapse it like so, there's a possibility that this, a strong possibility that this could hit the sensor. So please, if you do use a collapsible lens, and it doesn't matter whether it's a lights lens, it could easily be a lens off a Federal Resorki. With a collapsible lens, pull it out, lock it in, and then mount it on the adapter and leave the lens in this position. Don't collapse it, whatever you do. There are ways around this one. Some people, I believe, they put O-rings around here to prevent it, but I think you need quite a lot of O-rings. And then if you're like me, you want to put the lens back on a Leica, you've got to get those O-rings off if you want to collapse the lens. Maybe a DIY collar that you could just put over this barrel section here. There's all sorts of ways to remind you not to collapse the lens. But anyway, so that's one thing I did want to say. It is very important. So that's another bit out of the way. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this lens out of the way now because this lens isn't appropriate to my little talk this afternoon. What is appropriate though is these lenses here. There's just the 3 of them. And what I was going to look at today was, last time I talked about how and why you can put old glass onto a digital camera, and you know, the interest and the fun that you can have doing that. So this time I'm going to look at a few of the lenses that I've got, and I'm going to explain why I've got them and you know, how I came by them. I'm just going to concentrate on a few of the M42 lenses because the ones that I'm going to show you today are a little bit more quirky in a sense, I suppose. I won't be including the Takumars I've got, and the reason, what I'm going to do is, these lenses have all got one thing in common. They've all got the M42 mount, and if you're thinking of getting hold of some vintage lenses, then it's not for me to recommend anything really, but I think the M42 range are well worth considering because, first of all, there's a lot of them, and if you just get yourself an M42 mount, then you'll have quite a choice of lenses available. So this is going to be an M42 themed chat, but it won't include my Takumars because these lenses have one thing in common. Well, not all of them. Two of them have one thing in common, and that they are from the one's from Russia, and the other two are from East Germany, and one is from Japan. So I haven't included the 4 Takumars I've got because I think by and large people know that Takumars are a very good lens, but I'll cover those on the next upload. So what I'm going to do today is have a quick slurp of coffee. You don't mind doing that. I'm going to look at these lenses now. The first one I want to look at is this one. Now, it was only probably maybe, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago that I'd actually heard of Meyer Optic Görlitz, and I hope I probably pronounced Görlitz wrong, but it was just a rather interesting name. And I must admit, it was the name that first, I suppose, attracted me to these lenses. They are East German, and they tended to be attached to things like Praktikas, and actually there were also a version with a mount for an exactor. And while I'm talking about that, if you do decide to buy some of these lenses, or a lens, then do make sure that you're buying one with an M42 thread, because you do see them on eBay with an exactor mount. That's EXACTA, I think. Exactor was another make of East German camera, but that mount's totally different. So just make sure that you get one with the M42 screw thread on the back. Now, this lens is a dummy plan. The reason I bought this was because I was watching somebody else on YouTube expanding about the interesting, I think it was the bouquet these lenses can make, and that's what got me interested in them. And so I thought, well, I'll get hold of one and have a look. I actually mentioned this to a pal of mine who actually did have a Praktika back in probably the late 60s, early 70s, a long time ago. And I emailed him when I was thinking of buying one of these. No, I think I'd got this one, or I'd ordered it, bought it off eBay. Didn't pay a lot for it, which is just as well. And his response was, why? You know, and he did say he was subtle about it, but he did say that these lenses aren't particularly good. So, and he's absolutely right. Now, the interesting thing is, though, that a lot of these things tend to be a little bit controversial. You know, I've put this lens on one of my digital cameras and had it wide open because it was for the bokeh that I wanted it to. I bought it, and the camera, the focus speaking on the camera wouldn't work, or it didn't sort of indicate at any point that the lens was in focus, which was a bit interesting in itself. But that was with the lens wide open. And so I took a few photographs on the digital camera. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was probably the Panasonic GX7. If it wasn't that, it was the Fuji, but I think it was probably the Panasonic because that's got better focus peaking. And the focus peaking just simply wasn't there. There was no point in which it was suggesting the lens was in focus. So I took a few photographs with it, and they were pretty dire. Everything seemed to have a sort of a ghost around it, and so I went on a forum. I think it was an amateur photographer forum, and I was, I wasn't actually sort of making any rude comments about a lens. I just wanted to see what other people's thoughts were, and somebody did sort of jump to their defence and saying that the lenses are good when they're actually stopped down. And I must admit, they do get better because as you stop it down, and when I say stop it down, I'm talking round about probably f4 or higher. With the lens, with the iris wide open, the results are, which is 2.2. This is 2.8. This is a 2.8 50mm lens. With the lens wide open, the results are awful, and they do get better though as the lens is stopped down. Now it may well be that this lens. I have done a little bit of research on these, and the general opinion, though, I think, is that they are pretty poor. But somebody did point out that I think there's the collimation on these lenses can easily be messed up if somebody strips one down who doesn't actually know what they're doing. And to be fair about it, maybe that's what's happened with this one, or maybe it's just a Friday afternoon lens and it was never any good. I don't know. So in all fairness, somebody could have been tampering with it. Somebody could have. It may never have been a good one in the first place. It may have been just one. People do say that, I don't know how true this is, but they do say that Russian lenses and these German lenses do tend to be a bit like that. They have variable quality control. Whether that's the case or not, I honestly don't know, but I can say that this lens is pretty dire, and I wouldn't actually recommend buying one unless you want some weird sort of effects on it. It's like everything else, isn't it? That this was cheap. It's actually optically, it's in actually very good condition, and the iris is nice and snappy on it. There you can see that. But as a piece of optics, I wouldn't recommend this one. If you've got one though, and you would disagree with what I've just said, then please do, because it may well be that this one is faulty. It may well be that it has got a problem or somebody's been tampering with it, because I don't know what its history is. I wouldn't get rid of it. I didn't pay a lot for it, and I wouldn't pass it on to anybody else unless they wanted a lens that was optically quite weird. But maybe that's just a little bit of a warning. I don't think these. If you go online and research the dummy plan, I don't think you'll find many people raving about it. But nevertheless, it's an interesting lens. I don't particularly like the fact that the aperture ring is right on the edge as well. I'd prefer it to be inboard, as it were. But it's actually in quite nice. It's got a few scratches, but it's not bad considering it's probably dating from what, the 60s, 70s, 80s, something, probably the 70s. Could be maybe a bit earlier. But nevertheless, an interesting lens from an interesting company. Now, what I did do as well, though, now this lens has got problems. Optically, it's actually quite a nice lens, and I've actually taken some really nice images with this one. And this is the Mayer Optic Oreston. This is an f1.8 50mm lens, a standard lens, and This one's got an issue though. Once again, I didn't pay very much for it. The focus is quite smooth on it, but this pin here, which should actually operate the iris, doesn't do a thing, which suggests that the blades are oiled up. Oddly enough, I don't think they are. Now, it all stems something to do with this. There's a little button here that you press, and I'm not going to demonstrate it now because it will probably be quite a difficult thing to see, because the lighting in this room isn't brilliant. But basically, even with this pin pressed down, nothing sort of happens with the iris until, and it does work sometimes, if I press this little button here, and then it will flick into the right position, the right aperture. It's not a big problem actually, because if I do decide to lose this, then I'll have a little fiddle with it and get it to the aperture I want, and then I'd probably leave it in that aperture. I tend to shoot mainly with vintage glass, unless I'm after a particular effect. If I go out shooting locally, I think most lenses of this period, their sweet spot is round about f8. So I'd probably go out and just have this set at f8. It is possible with a little bit of fiddling around to get the blades to stop down. But I think there's something wrong with this. Now, if you've got one of these lenses and it works, perhaps you could explain to me why, because I can't find anything online about this, about what this little, where's it gone, the little button he does, unless it's just as a sort of a depth of field check mechanism, and it's just not working properly. It's sticking on this one. It's clear there's something amiss with this lens, because this pin sort of sticks as well if you can pull it further out. So I don't know whether I've got I suspect there's a problem with the lens, or I'm misusing it, but I can eventually, after some fiddling and messing about, I can get the aperture I want. But I welcome any comments that you might have on this one. Again, I didn't pay very much for this lens, and optically it's actually pretty clean. I have taken photographs with this, as I've said, and then the results are actually very pleasing indeed. So it's another one for the collection. I certainly think this is a nice lens, and if you see one in nice condition, it may well be worth considering. These lenses came, as far as I know, attached to either the Praktika range or the Exacta, but the Exacta mount is different. So as I've said before, if you do see one of these on eBay, check the mount, check it's an M42 mount, unless of course you are actually looking for one with an Exacta mount. And so that's the two Maya Optic, which I think is a great name, lenses out of the way. Now, now this one, you may remember if you watch one of my earlier uploads, I showed you my two Pentax cameras, and one of them, the black one, the black-bodied one, was, well, I've always had it from brand new, and it came with, I ordered it with the Takamar SMC super multi-coated lens, the f1.8 55mm lens, which is more or less the standard lens they tended to come with. You could pay a little bit more and have the f1.4. Now, the other one, the Spotmatic one, when I bought it, it came fitted with this lens. Now this little lens cap here My wife found this. I think we found it in Norfolk, and so this isn't a Pentax lens at all, but it actually fits this lens. So that's why it's got a lens cover with lens cap with Pentax on, and it's actually now this is the lens that came fitted to the Spotmatic 1, which I purchased after I got the Spotmatic 2, just as another body. So this lens was on this Pentax Spotmatic 1, and it's a Fuji lens, f2.2. Now I've taken photographs with this lens on the GX7, and the quality is lovely. I took one of back of a chap who was having a cup of tea in a cafe, an outside cafe, and he got all his bike racing gear on. So I was sort of sitting at the back of him, and I thought, well, I'll take a photograph of this chap, and really it's a lovely tack sharp, really very impressive lens. This was the this is the lens. This morning I got all these lenses out ready for this particular vlog, and I was playing about that. That's another nice snappy iris now, but this morning it wasn't. It was actually sticking, and it was releasing quite slowly. One of my Takomar lenses does that as well, the 35mm one. And what I found is, though, it tends to be a sign that there could be a bit of lubricant on the iris leaves, but I kept exercising it like that, and now you can see it's really nice and nice and snappy now. These pins, incidentally, what they do is they are for activating the iris. So you can have the lens wide open for focusing purposes. And then this is on a film camera. This is the camera. If this lens was on a film camera, the film camera would, assuming it's an SLR, would activate this pin. So you focus with the lens wide open. And as you press the shutter, a plate comes forward from within the camera. I'll show you in a minute, and it just activates that. So as you press the shutter, it does that. It goes to its preset aperture. If this is mounted onto, and I'll show you actually, because what we'll do is we'll set this to say f11. And you can clearly see the iris is still wide open. Now, I'm going to mount it onto this M42 adapter. Now, the M42 adapter, as you can see, this rim here, it's flat all the way around. So as we screw it on, it will push this pin in. So the lens will then stop down to, see if I can get it aligned properly. So as I screw it on to the adapter, the pin will eventually get pushed in, and there you go. There's the iris closing down, because the pin is now being pushed into the camera light. So if that was sticking a little bit, it would make no difference in this scenario where I've got it on an adapter, but it would, of course, if it was sticky on the film camera. There you can see it's just opened up again. But if using this on the film camera, it could result, if it's very slow, in the wrong exposure. And what I'll do, but that's the Fuji lens, it's a nice lens, and with a bit of exercising it's freed up nicely. And I do the same thing with the Takomar. Play around with it, keep pressing the back pin, and it'll suddenly start working properly. Now, I've got one more lens to show you. Move those out of the way. I'll put that one back on like that. Now here I've got this camera out for two reasons. You've not seen this camera before. This camera, it's a Zenit 12XP, probably dates from the early 80s. This was given to me by a friend, and he told me it's never been used, so it's in pretty good nick. Unfortunately, the light meter doesn't work. It's got LED indicators inside. That's not working, but he said it's never been used, and I can well believe that because it's pretty mint, and it's very, very clean inside. I'm going to remove the lens for two reasons. Again, notice it's a screw thread, M42 screw thread. I've had this lens on a digital camera, and it's lovely, fantastic lens. It's the Helios 44M -4. It's an f2 58mm lens, and this one's in very nice condition. The iris leaves are nice. I hope you can see that, because the room's lit in from the side by the patio door, but I hope you can make it. It's nice and snappy. So I've had this lens on a digital camera. Very nice results. Anyway, back to this pin arrangement here, and I can demonstrate using this Zenit. What I'll do, I'll cock the shutter like so, and can you see that? I don't know whether you can see this. There's a plate there, and as I fire the shutter, if you look carefully, that plate will move, and that's what activates the pin. And with this camera, if you want another way of checking your depth of field, actually, if you press the shutter down gently, there's a point where the plate comes forward, but the shutter hasn't operated. Now that would activate that pin, stop the lens down, so you could check your depth of field, and then you press the shutter a bit further. Off it goes. So that's what that pin's there for. And if you're using it with an adapter and digital camera, the pin is pushed in anyway, so you wouldn't have that problem with the iris. But you could do if you're using it on a genuine film camera, because it might not stop down at the right time in conjunction with the actual shutter opening. So a Russian lens, a Helios, and a Japanese lens, and two East German lenses. While I was researching this, put those there like so. Look quite pretty, don't they? While I was researching this morning, I kept coming across reference to Praktikas. Now, one of the best lenses you tend to get on Praktikas, and they do come on the market, but a word of warning up to a point. Probably one of the best lenses that the people bought attached to a Praktika was the Carl Zeiss Jenner Tessar. I think they did another one. Did they do one called the Pancolor, or the Pancolar, as some people call it? Was that a Zeiss lens? I think it was. And I came across an interesting sort of argument, really, I think, in one forum. As you probably know, the Zeiss, the German Zeiss company, goes back a long way, and during the the political activity that went on after World War II, the Zeiss factory got split into two pieces. The Americans claimed one part of Germany, which we knew as the West Germany, and the Russians had their section as well. That's why we had the Berlin Wall. And the Zeiss factory, as I understand it, some of it was in the western section and some of it was in the eastern section. So the Carl Zeiss factory was split into two. And some of the technicians found themselves in East Germany, and some found themselves, these are the people that worked for Zeiss, some found themselves in East Germany, some found themselves in West Germany, and some of them who were in the eastern side of it decided to climb the wall or whatever they did and managed to get into the West, but not all of them. And so both these areas were producing lenses under the Zeiss, Carl Zeiss name. The ones, as I understand it, that are marked Jena, or as people now pronounce it, Jena. I'm going to pronounce it Jena. The Jena lenses, as I understand it, are the ones that are marked in, made in the eastern part of Germany, whereas the Carl Zeiss lenses with no reference to Jena are the western side. And so we've got really two different factories making lenses. Now the ones on the made on the eastern side were fitted to Praktikas. And one chap was arguing that the Eastern German lenses are not as good as the ones made in the West. Clearly, the ones made in the West are going to be more sought after and are going to be more expensive. And the ones that were made in the East, the inference was that they are of probably a lower mechanical quality. Now, I don't want to get involved in this sort of controversy, but I mean, I think it probably stands to reason that maybe if the Praktika range of cameras came into Britain because they were far less expensive than Japanese cameras, and like the Russian Zorki and Feds, they were more affordable. Before things like discount houses started up, there was a thing called retail price maintenance. Now I do remember it being abolished at some point, but up until that point, I think the law said that certain things, new things, more or less had to be sold at one price, and this is why the law was changed at some point, and this is why we suddenly had these discount houses starting up where they could buy in bulk and cut prices. That wasn't always the case, as I understand it. So consequently, Japanese cameras and German cameras were really expensive. I think in real terms, they were more expensive then than they are now. So probably something like, say, a Japanese Pentax wouldn't, if we did it in today's money, they'd be several £1,000s. I haven't got a calculator, I can't prove that, but they would have been pricey. So there was a market for cameras from East Germany and from Russia, because what you could get for your money was a proper camera that had a relatively fast lens fitted to it, and one with a relatively fast shutter, probably 500th of a second, maybe 1,000, depending on which model you bought. And they came into the country and, well, by their thousands, because it was a more affordable way. And even those weren't cheap, but it was a more affordable way of getting a decent camera for your money. And so they sold pretty well, and the practicas came with a variety of lenses, such as the two we've seen here from Meyer Optic. Incidentally, I should say that this one, the Oreston, was marketed by Pentacon later with just the Pentacon name on. So if it's got Meyer Optic Girl, it's on it. It's an earlier version. I should have mentioned that. But anyway, going back to this this forum, one chap was implying that the East German Zeiss lenses, the Carl Zeiss Jena ones, were far inferior to the West German ones. Well, I don't want to get involved in that. But what he did say, and the only reason I mention this, I mean, I say it's a controversy and I don't want to get involved. But what he did say, and I think there's some truth in this, is that a lot of the East German lenses that are for sale on places like eBay now are being sold really, in a sense, above their true value, because people are picking onto the name Zeiss. And so a lot of people associate Zeiss with quality optics, which is quite right. But bear in mind, you've got to be a little bit careful, because it might have Zeiss on it, but I think it goes without saying that lenses from, I don't want to upset anybody, I don't want to be controversial, but I think it's a reasonable assumption to make that probably lenses from the what was the East German side are probably not of the same quality as those from the west of Germany, West Germany. As I said, and I'll say this again, I don't want to get involved in that, because I haven't, other than these two lenses here, I haven't got any East German lenses. These are the two I've got. I've already criticised that one. This one is okay. But the general implication by this one chap was that, the East German Zeisses are not of the same quality as the West German Zeisses, which I don't know, you may be right, may be wrong. You have to bear in mind, of course, that people were probably paid a lot less money in the communist side of Germany, so that the lenses could be sold at the production costs would be lower. But then somebody quite rightly sprung to their defence and said, and he claimed that the lenses that were being made by Carl Zeiss Jena in the eastern part of Germany were every bit as good, and they were made by the people who used to work for Zeiss before it was split up into two parts. So you've got this little bit of controversy going on here. Far be it from me to get involved, because I actually don't know, I haven't got any experience. But they do seem to be, what shall I say, I think some are better than others, and I think the Tessar and the Pankola are probably the ones worth looking at. But I think it is worth, I mean, I'm talking about buying old lenses and, to fit on digital cameras, and I think it should be made clear, don't get, because these lenses have got Zeiss on them, don't pay silly money for the East German Zeiss ones. They're good lenses, but it's the West German ones which tend to fetch a lot more money. So don't let somebody hoodwink you into, just because they've got the name Zeiss on them. If you get a good one, you get a good one. But this one chap seemed to be implying that some people just hanging on to the Zeiss name, and maybe, just maybe, it should be taken into account that the Jena ones were from the communist part of Germany, which of course doesn't exist now. But we're going back to Berlin Wall. No, we're going back to when the Berlin Wall was still still there. Thankfully now it's a reunification and it's not there. So anyway, something to bear in mind. Just be careful. Don't get bidding silly money for the Carl Zeiss lenses, although they are very nice. Anyway, that's it for now. I think I've covered everything. I hope you enjoyed that. The next one I do, I will be looking at the Takumars and a few other lenses that I've got adapters for. And really, I'm just I'm not criticising any of these lenses to any great extent. The Russian Helios is a darn good lens. This Oreston, yeah, this one's got its problems, but optically it's really nice. Personally, I wouldn't touch a Domiplan, and this Fuji lens is quite nice as well. You have to go on your own sort of experience with them, don't you? And so that's it though. This is rather a long, and crikey, 41 minutes I've been rattling on. So I'm going to say goodbye now. And at the usual things, I'd like to know a bit more about the problem I've got with this one. If you've got one, perhaps you could put me right. And if you disagree about the East and West Zeiss lenses, the controversy there, which I haven't created. I mean, I've just read about this morning, researching these lenses. I came across this and I thought, well, that's quite interesting. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. Any input, fire away. And welcome to the new subscribers, and thank you. So that's it then. Take care. I'll be back at some point in the hopefully near future, and then we can then tidy up doing the rest of the lenses that I use or don't use. So thanks again, and I'll see you soon.